Well, got together today because obviously with the COVID pandemic's had a really bad effect on mental health and well-being, and just want to throw out a couple of stats that we'd come across over the last few weeks that had said that 1 in 5 people in the UK were experiencing depression, a rate that had sort of doubled since the beginning of the pandemic. And in the UK at present, mental health is responsible for 72 million working days lost in England, and employers' costs have been estimated by Deloitte to be 45 billion each year. So with this in mind, we wanted to come together today and have a conversation around that, and for ways in which SME businesses can help protect their people and hopefully help alleviate mental health.
Yeah, so we got together and we've been having a few chats over the last few months with Paul from Everymind at work. So welcome, Paul, today. Thanks for joining us. I know you're super busy at the moment because it's a pretty hot topic, isn't it? So, Paul, tell us a little bit about Everymind at work and how you came up with the idea and the concepts and how it's kind of come to life.
Yeah, sure. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I always like these conversations. Yeah, Everymind at work, what our aim is to be a partner to businesses. Obviously, within the SME space, there's a real focus on mental health at the moment, but where do you start? Where do you invest the time? Where do you invest the resources? Does it fall on the shoulders of HR, or is there an individual? So really what we're trying to do is create partnerships with businesses. And we launched at the beginning of last year. And obviously due to the pandemic, it was obviously accelerated in terms of our growth. And the way that we sort of support businesses is mostly down to our app that's accessible to all of their employees. And the key thing with that app is it's anonymous, but then it drives data that the business can see anonymously. And it gives them a bit more insight into where they should pay more attention. So where should they invest money when it comes to mental health? What should they focus on when it comes to their communications or events that they're running to better support their employees? And it's a very purpose-driven business. I've got my own sort of journey and story of mental health. And I started this business off the back of me going into companies and sharing my own personal experience. And I'm walking out and saying to myself, I'm not coming back. Like, it's a tick box. We've got this speaker in for Mental Health Awareness Week, and now we're done. We might get another speaker in next year, but it's not going to be Paul. And sadly, I lost my dad to suicide when I was 18, and this is why I do what I do, because it was a very out of the blue suicide. Didn't expect it. Didn't have any education or understanding of mental illness and mental health. And when I finally felt comfortable to talk about it, I saw a real need. As we've just highlighted, this is a problem that a lot of people experience. So we definitely need a bit more support. So yeah, our aim as a business is to provide that support.
That's awesome. And yeah, I mean, it's obviously quite a story and a journey from your own personal perspective, as you say, which I guess is why you're really so passionate about the business. Yeah. I mean, obviously over the last 12 months, we've definitely seen companies experiencing more of this, I guess, with the pandemic, and it's being on the agenda a lot more. But do you think, I mean, we're definitely seeing the openness come, but do you think there is still really that stigma around it and people are still a little bit nervous to kind of put their head above the parapet and, for fear of reprisal at work or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting there, right? And I'm sure you both agree. The conversation's moving. I think about, so I lost my dad in 2009. He was 45. I think back to that time, there was very little talk about mental health. I believe Mind were maybe the only charity back then focusing on mental health. And the conversation has definitely moved on. There's more people speaking about mental health. It's definitely, the awareness is increasing. But as you said, stigma still definitely exists, and stigma doesn't go away overnight because mental health is very generational, right? I'm sure you've got people like my granddad, who is very much stiff upper lip, man up, just get on with it, right? And my dad's generation was probably similar, which caused my dad to potentially suffer in silence for so long, because how does he talk about how he was feeling when you're almost taught to not talk about your emotions, as specifically his generation as well. And we're up against that, which is a big challenge. But yeah, we have to address stigma, because so many businesses have focused too long on what I call a reactive approach. let's wait until an issue arises and then we'll do something about it.
Mhm.
Whereas we are trying to focus more on a proactive approach. Let's try and focus on prevention, make it more of an open conversation, and focus there, you know, because mental health is something that we all have. But yeah, to tackle stigma, it's going to take a long time. You know, I do the work that I do, sitting here sort of thinking to myself, I'll probably be a great granddad by the time maybe stigma has eradicated. It's definitely going to take time, but we all have the responsibility and the power to at least start making a bit of change. And,
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
you guys putting on these sessions is a big part of that as well. But yeah, businesses, they need to tackle stigma before they really think about doing anything when it comes to mental health.
Yeah, I mean, you sort of alluded earlier to the sort of box ticking, and I think that we're definitely seeing people going, oh, okay, this mental health stuff, then we kind of need to do something about that. I know we have ticked that box, so therefore we've done it. But in terms of obviously someone feeling really comfortable with the app and kind of, you know, like going on and actually seeking support or help, how does that relate back to if I was the employee and I was a bit nervous about perhaps my employer really understanding what's going on with me? How does it work from an IT perspective? Is the employee super exposed, or what kind of data is shared with the employer?
Yeah, so again, you know, we keep it simple. So every company has their own company ID, so it makes the app specific to them. So we can brand it for them. We can embed their existing initiatives or anything they want in the platform. One of the key things that we also do with a lot of companies is potentially put in employee stories into the app. You know, only their colleagues can then see those stories. I think that's a really good way at tackling the stigma. But yeah, in terms of signing up, all they need is the company ID, work email address or personal email address, and then password. We don't ask for their name. We don't ask for their date of birth. We don't ask for any of that. And if we did, we could probably get more specific data on demographics and all of that, which could help what we're trying to achieve. But, you know, I know that's going to potentially stop people from signing up because, as we've said, stigma still exists. So all they do is they enter in their work email address, set a password, they verify that they're an employee, and then none of the content is personally identifiable. So the data that we share with the company is more about generalized data, you know, overall sort of 30% of searches around anxiety this month and last month. Kind of looking at sort of the bigger picture of this is what we're seeing in terms of the organization, in terms of the industry, and also in terms of everyone on the platform too. So we're kind of looking at sort of top level data, but what that does is it kind of highlights the areas where employers might need to focus. So do they need to focus on resilience, or do they need to focus on anxiety or self-esteem or financial worries? But nothing can be traced back to Ian, who's looking at this content, because that's not going to make employees feel safe, and we want to make them feel safe to use it. Otherwise, the tool isn't accessible.
Sure. No, that sounds really kind of a great approach, because I think that's definitely one of the barriers, isn't it, normally?
Mm.
I mean, one of the most common responses we get when we speak to our clients about, you know, mental health prevention and well-being and what can we do is, oh, well, we don't know if we can afford it. I mean, I think some of the figures that you look at show that the cost in loss of productivity and days taken off sick and everything totally account for it and make your business case. But I noticed from looking at your website that you've got a lot of free material on there and a lot of blogs. I mean, what do you think people can do to sort of cover off the basics?
Yeah, it's a, you know, a really good question, and this is the biggest challenge we have. Or we don't have budget, you know, and
Yeah.
you got to paint the business case of you, as you've already kind of alluded to. Also the case of mitigating risk, you know, employee tribunals are high at the moment, and kind of looking at, as a business, are we doing as much as we can from an employer duty of care point of view? But there's so much that you can do for free, you know, there's so much, and it's purely about, what I focus on is, for too long businesses have focused on the what and they haven't focused on the why. So what I mean by that is, the what is, well, we have an EAP, we have mental health first aiders, we have this on Mental Health Awareness Week, we've put money here. And then when you say, but why have you done all of that? They can't back it up. There's no strategy. There's no theory behind it. So instead of the what, you need to focus on the why. So why are we doing this? What are we trying to create? And there's so much from, empowering your employees to bring their whole selves to work, or empowering 5 or 6 of them to be champions and to create a well-being forum and let them drive initiatives within the business and create conversations. That doesn't cost anything at all. And then there's so much sort of free training and free resources out there as well, like you've said. So there's so much that you can do. Flexible working policies, looking at how you approach the business and what you stand for and the culture and what you're trying to achieve. None of that costs anything. You don't have to buy a product to be able to achieve that. So I would definitely start there and think about strategy. Yeah. And when it comes to strategy, what we advise is 3 pillars. So 3 pillars are promote, provide, protect. So promote is very much, awareness, culture, creating a safe work environment. Provide is proactive strategies and training and providing them with tools that they can use to manage their own mental health and help others. And then protect is very much, if an employee is in crisis, as a business, do you know what to do? And what businesses have done for so long is they've gone straight to protect. So, we've got a 24/7 counselling line if anyone wants to use it, but that isn't actually doing much when it comes to mental health, right? But what we're trying to do is focus on the promote and provide. And if you imagine a funnel of 1,000 employees, you're going to have people falling through to protect. It's inevitable. You can't control everything. But what we're doing is trying to put as many barriers in place to prevent someone from getting into that crisis point. So definitely building a strategy like that, I think, is really, really key for businesses.
And Nicola and I were speaking yesterday, actually, and we feel that that there's quite a focus on what we have to do, and you see a lot of employers getting busy about the things that they want to do, and they want to put things in place. Do you think there's also stuff we could stop doing or change the way that we're doing it to help?
Yeah, I think it's about language. Again, it's something that we neglect, but it's so important. And I'm not saying that we're all perfect. I've said stuff in the past, and I probably still continue to say stuff that adds to the stigma. It's how I was brought up. It's how I was conditioned. But we all have the ability to focus on the language that we use within the workplace, and also education. Again, like you said, there's so many free resources out there that help us educate ourselves on how to approach this. And when we're looking at sort of different mental illnesses or how people sort of perceive mental health, we have to look at education. So I think for too long the mistakes that we've made is just ignore it. Like, let's just ignore it, hope that there's no issues, let's brush it under the carpet. Don't worry, I've been told, oh, if you come in, are you going to open up a can of worms? Are you going to make the issue arise? And I always say, I'm not going to, I might make people talk, but if that's not what you want, then I'm the wrong person for the job. So I think, the mistake that we've made is that we've just ignored it, and we hope that there isn't an issue, and we wait. And then when an issue arises, then we do something about it. That reactive approach is what happened to my dad. That reactive approach is what I did to get to the place that I was in. That reactive approach is what companies have done for so long. And then all of a sudden, oh no, we've just had this travesty and we need to do something about it. So yeah, I think the biggest mistake is ignoring it. We need to start doing more about it.
I think that's really good advice. I mean, as people, I'm sure you speak to a lot of HR people yourself, Paul, and Nicola and I speaking with clients that are in the HR space or are relying on us for HR input. We've seen the whole pandemic's been a really tough time for the HR department. Changing policy, furloughing people. They've been driving all the change and the redundancy programs and so on, and having to guide themselves through that whole period of the pandemic as well. I mean, I think people are also looking to HR to be the sort of health guardians of the business as well, but a lot of people maybe feel quite ill-equipped about that. I mean, is there you did allude to this when you were speaking before, but is there ways in which the apps can help HR people get a handle on the mood music, if you like, within the business and know when to call in the professionals?
Yeah, I mean, you both have got experience in this, and this gets my blood boiling a little bit, where there's just so much responsibility placed on HR's shoulders when it comes to mental health. It's, I speak to people, I speak to someone, yesterday who's a company of 450. There's 2 in HR, and it falls on the shoulders of both of them. And it's hard enough looking after our own mental health, let alone 400 employees, right? How do you do that? And equally, without, you know, as you say, a lot of people in HR, they haven't been given much training or anything when it comes to dealing with someone struggling with mental health. So exactly as you said, you know, I'm pretty fed up with staff morale needs to be boosted. What we're going to do about it and just turn into HR. So they definitely need that support. So that's kind of, again, what our whole business has evolved into, is let us take that work off your hands. So what we do for you know, the HR that we work with is we plan out like a 12-month strategy. We plan out a 12-month roadmap, which includes the key dates of mental health. We send them comms, we send them initiatives and ideas that they can use within the business. We then have the app and we embed the app into the business. And then, as you've said, they have a dashboard where they can see what we call the Everymind score that kind of looks at workplace well-being, mental health, resilience, etc. They can compare that to other businesses across sort of the platform and see how they're doing. And then we look at self-esteem, connections, relationships, work. We look at anxiety and mood within the business, and we basically highlight the points that maybe need a bit more work. And again, that's all anonymized. You can't see who's struggling, but it gives them an insight on what to do. And then of course that kind of takes the guesswork out of it, and we're there then to help them with, you know, you can try this, you can try that, and try and obviously help them as much as possible. Because again, you know, from my experience, there's a lot of guessing when it comes to mental health. You know, should we do this? Should we do that? Or if we do something for Mental Health Awareness Week, should we do this? Or you know, and it's very much, there's very little understanding or knowing of what to do. And what I find is companies will spend money and spend money and spend money and spend money, and 3 years later, they're still in the same place that they were. They might have moved the needle a little bit, but for the amount of money they've invested, they should have moved it a lot more. So yeah, kind of the support that we're trying to do is take that guesswork out of it.
No, I think that's great. Sorry, on you go, Nicola.
Sorry, yeah, I was just going to ask you, obviously, sometimes people resist these kind of apps and things because they think that people won't engage with them or they won't use them regularly enough. But you're saying then that you kind of help the HR people with a sort of suite of communications to make that a little bit easier to keep the engagement high. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. It's up to us to get people on the app. Otherwise, you know, they're not going to continue. So we basically send them the communications of this is how they get them to sign up. I will always do a launch session, we call it. So I basically go into the company if they want it. Of course, everything's remote at the moment, which makes it even better. So I'll do a webinar, or sometimes I jump in on their team meeting, which is probably they don't expect it. And then I'll just share my story. I'll talk about the importance of mental health. I'll talk about some sort of tools that they can use to support themselves and support others. And then we introduce them to the app and we say, you know, this company is obviously signed up to Everymind. I walk them through how to sign up. And that's a really good way of boosting engagement, because if you've got 50 employees on the platform, on the webinar, or 10 or 20, normally 90% of them on that session will sign up there and then, because it gives them a bit more context as to why this is important. You know, here's someone talking about their own personal journey of why this is important. And you know what, I'm gonna download this app and it's there for me if I need it. But yeah, certainly there's a big challenge of getting people onto the platform. But again, you know, it's the education of a platform like ours for employees to understand that they're never going to get 100%. But if you can get maybe 20% or 30%, you know, that's still a big portion of the business. And, you know, as we've kind of said, the cost, I think they say it's about £1,300 per employee per year for poor mental health. You know, and, you know, if we can just get 20%, 30% of that business protected and providing support for, it's hugely beneficial as well. So yeah, it's up to us to drive that engagement, and there's a few ways that we do that, but it's important to create that partnership with them.
Yeah, I mean, we were sort of talking actually earlier, and sort of talking about how you kind of move the needle all the time. And I think that with these things, like you say, you're never going to go from sort of zero to hero, are you? It's going to be that kind of journey of bringing people along and making people feel safe and comfortable. I mean, I have a lot of, like, you know, talent attraction and employer brand kind of, you know, activity in my sort of history, I guess. And I can see this being like a really great tool in terms of that talent attraction piece. So, you know, when you're bringing people into the business, to be able to say, look, this is how we feel and this is how we support our employees, and it really builds that caring culture. Are you finding that people are sort of using it for those purposes?
Yeah, we've had a lot of sort of potential clients as well talk about, making it more of a unique proposition to attract new talent as well. Let's be honest, there's a lot more publicity about companies doing X, Y, and Z for their employees. And if you're trying to attract new talent, then, and you don't do anything, it's going to have, you're not going to be able to attract that talent. So yeah, I believe companies are really, really looking at it in different ways. And one of them is sort of creating propositions for new employees as well as existing employees. And yeah, I believe the awareness around mental health has definitely pushed that. As I always talk about, we're so more open about it now. If I'm talking to my friend and my friend talks about all of these amazing benefits and flexible working and tools that he has, and I'm sitting here thinking, well, I'm made to work from 8 to 8 and I don't get any sort of, anything, then it's not going to make me want to stay in that job. It's not going to want me to, I'm not going to want to be productive. I might think I've got an employee tribunal case if I want to go for it. And it's one of those that, businesses need to start looking at it, as you say, holistically in a much bigger picture. And that's the sad reality of it. And I'm sure you understand this, is it still isn't a priority. The reason why I say it's not a priority when we're looking at budgets. The reason why it becomes a priority is when someone is in crisis, which is why we've been so reactive. But when we're looking at how do we look at it as a priority, a lot of it comes down to the fact that we're mitigating risk, we're creating a sort of business case, a commercial case, and at the same time, we're looking at the overall sort of awareness and publicity for the company as well. So, we don't like selling it like that, but equally, as long as we get this tool and the support in as many hands as possible, everyone sort of reacts to it very differently.
Yeah, and it's interestingly, we heard some stats last week from an investment company actually, and they were telling us that companies are valued 10% higher when they have a highly engaged workforce, a great culture. And I think these metrics now have become a really big part of looking at the overall business and what the sort of bottom line is going to be and what the value of that company is going forward. I mean, that's something that struck me when we were talking before and I looked at the app and the sort of overall cost to a business. I mean, it's really very affordable, isn't it? Even for an SME to utilize the app and to have it as in their tool bag.
Yeah, exactly. Like some of our smaller clients are potentially paying, £80 a month, for the app, for the data, for the partnership, for the comms that we send them, for everything, and of course, as you are a bigger company, then the cost becomes more. But again, we're not a traditional sort of benefits platform that says, okay, you've got 4,000 employees, we're going to charge you for 4,000, because the reality of it is, as I've already alluded to, we're up against the force of being told to not look after your mental health. So you're not going to get 4,000 people sign up to a mental health app. So again, the way we price it is very much on how many people do we believe is going to be engaging with it, going to be using it. And again, that pricing is quite reasonable. So as you say, it's a commercial business and I need to pay my team and potentially I want to grow the business, but at the same time, it's a purpose-driven business. And the reason why I started this is obviously my dad was 2009, so he definitely didn't have an app on his phone, right? He probably had a Nokia. But I think my dad was an engineer, and I just wonder whether 2007, 2008, 2006, if there was like a talk in his workplace, or there was a tool, or he saw something and he heard someone's story and he thought to himself, I can maybe talk about this, 3 or 4 years before, things could have been different. And we don't know that, but, potentially it could. So it's about, providing that support for people, and the team is very passionate as well. So, and equally, a lot of the businesses that we work with, we want the partnership. We're a tick box for some companies, because we're an app. But equally, we want the businesses that say, we want the webinars, we want the training, we want the resilient stuff, we want this, we want that, because they're the people that, as you've said, in 12 months' time are actually going to see a lot more change as well.
Yeah. I mean, I love the idea you mentioned earlier of the sort of well-being ambassadors in the business, because they can kind of really, like, I guess, help, like, HR teams or management teams to get the usage up there. And, we're seeing lots more people trained as mental aid first first aiders, so mental health first aiders even, you know, we're seeing a lot more of that happening, and I think that it's all good stuff, isn't it? I mean, where are you going then, Paul? What's your vision for the business, and what do you think will be, you know, where Everymind at Work will be in the next sort of 3 to 5 years?
Just growing, like, you know, the focus for us is growth this year. I mean, we partnered with just over 100 companies last year, and we did a free trial around COVID time just to get some support to employees, you know, and some of them are now obviously paying for the platform. We're partnering with more and more companies, but just wanting to become, you know, the mental health partner for businesses. You know, we've just secured Waits, which is a sort of, you know, a construction property company. So we've been working with them now for about 6 months, and it's, you know, we're working with an amazing person within the business, a lady called Kelly, who's just so passionate about it and just wants to do more. And, you know, we're becoming their mental health partner. And for me, that excites me because we're working with people that are really passionate and want to do more, and I'm really excited to kind of see where those partnerships go. So yeah, this focus is this year is just growth, trying to get into more businesses and partner with them. We're growing the team, which is amazing. Never thought I would be corporate, you know. I'd rather be on a beach somewhere. But yeah, there's a fire in my stomach that is obviously been put there by my dad, and also my kids. You know, I've got 2 young boys, and I want them to grow up in a society where mental doesn't mean crazy, right? And yeah, so yeah, we just want to keep growing and keep pushing it, and just see where it goes. And I'm enjoying it along the way as well.
That's amazing, really exciting.
Fantastic, yeah. I mean, well, we wish you every success with that.
Yeah.
No, and I appreciate you guys sort of having us on, and by the sounds of it, you do some great work as well. So it's always good to speak with you know, people that have similar passions and sort of, you know, missions as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us it is, you know, we imagined our business around this really people-centric, you know, view, and looking to work ideally with clients that, you know, feel that way as well. And, you know, our services are around like the whole people life cycle, but I think all of these things play a part in that. And, you know, building culture, working with good teams and good people is, you know, it's certainly like where we're coming from. I mean, in terms of how people find out more then, and you know, we can drop some links when we put the content out, but what is the best way of someone kind of getting you know, in touch and finding out, you know, a little bit more about the app?
Yeah, I think there's 2 ways. You can go to the website everymindatwork.com, or you can just drop me an email if you want to sort of find out more or find out a little bit more about that strategy. You know, again, sort of happy to help, whether it's that you partner with us or not. It's always good to kind of hear kind of where we can support. So you can just email me, paul@everymindatwork.com. But yeah, other than that, just the website is probably the best place.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say I was very impressed just with the amount of, you know, sort of freely available information on there. I'd encourage anyone who's sort of looking to do their bit to go on there and have a look around, because I thought there was some really, really good stuff on there.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's, you know, there's so much that you can get for free now, and it's about getting, you know, there's such a lack of education around mental health, isn't there? So we're just trying to provide them with that, whether it's blog posts or stuff on social media, or, you know, we do webinars as well. And it's just trying to do as much as we can to provide that value. And if they do need that extra support, then we're there for them as well.
That's awesome. So thanks again, Paul, for sort of taking the time.
Really appreciate it.